You've made it!
Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is QUACKCAST number 490, the Drunkduck QUACKCAST. I'm Ozone Osh. Yeah?
You're so heckin' old.
I know, we all are. I'm Ozone Ocean, the oldest of the old, and with me are these little young scams, Tance, Pit, and Baines. Hello, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
And
We should start a process for choosing what our 500th is going to be all about. Maybe ask people.
I know, before that, we've got to choose a process for who our predecessors will be, you know, like Star...
Why are we living in reverse?
Return of the whatever that movie was. You know those new Star Wars films. I can't remember the damn title. Yeah, that's it. Like The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. Basically, we've got to kill ourselves off like they do in those films and shepherd in our young Mary Sue replacements to take over.
Right,
I'm not
clear
gonna
the decks.
pass the torch to anybody. I'm just gonna let the cast die with me. I'm gonna sink my entire fortune and never tell anybody where it is.
No original creations. It's all a crappy do-over. we need the crappier versions of ourselves.
In the past, if you have to, mejor thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because that is always very smart to kill the past.
We destroy all the past and just have really crappy new versions of it. That's the way to go. But before...
Kill the past. No, let the past die. Kill it if you have to, and then just shamelessly copy it.
Exactly. The recipe for
that's why
success.
So that, we can pretend it's original now.
Reinvent the wheel again and again and again and again and again. Okay, but speaking of reinventing the wheel, this is another QUACKCAST on genres. Yay!
Hooray!
We've done many of these, but this time we're talking about mainly genres in webcomics. So rather than just being generalizing about genres, well, which you probably will do anyway. Well, at least the core of it, the central idea will be the genres in webcomics.
The webcomic focus will last about a minute and a half.
Yes, exactly. The shining star that will be snuffed out.
Prime of... Anyway, yeah.
Underneath the slime of porn. Okay, so let's bring up the feature. Speaking of the slime of porn, let's bring up the featured comic. And what was the feature this week? It was something that QUACKCAST did. She featured Bottomless Waitress.
Subtitle The Slime of Porn.
Exactly. Which is by a pair of young, plucky little chaps called Ozone Ocean and Baines. Young,
Hooray.
happy
Just to
dudes.
show that there's no nepotism in the duck. I mean, how long have you guys been updating now? It took this long.
Yeah, 7 years.
It's been on the... Well, it's been around long enough, but I was so embarrassed because this has the most nudity that has ever been in a comic in the last 2 pages.
Yeah.
It was featured right
Probably
now.
in the whole comic, I would say, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly, and quite
It's the
featured
most,
it.
yeah, it's the most naked page, and that's when it gets featured. It's hilarious.
Exactly. So take it away, Kwai, with the feature.
It's by QUACKCAST, and the feature I've selected for this week is Bottomless Waitress by Ozone Ocean and Baines, and it is rated M for mature. Bottomless Waitress tells the tale of a small-town diner and the lovely ladies who work at the diner. There is only one rule. All employees must dress in the proper uniform attire, which does not happen to include any bottoms. The story centers around Polly, Francis, and Jane, where Polly is always ready to give Francis love and dating advice. Back in the diner, they have all sorts of antics going on. Rowdy customers, slapstick antics, and spilled batter that needs to be cleaned up. This is a collaboration comic drawn and hand-lettered by Ozone Ocean, the Great, and written by the fun-loving Baines. Everyone should read Bottomless Waitress because this feature has been 7 years in the making, and the story and art is really detailed and handled with care. Find out if Francis will finally listen to Polly's relationship advice and read Bottomless Waitress by Ozone Ocean and Baines, rated M.
And that was the feature, Bottomless Waitress. Check that out. Well,
Yay.
I mean, yeah. But beware, there is nudity on the card. Well, it's PG nudity, I would say, because it's covered by... Anyway, yeah, just watch out. Okay, so after that we have the featured music. Gumwallace emailed me and he said I couldn't resist, and he was being very cheeky. And the reason is, basically, cheeky is the word, because he gave me another theme to Bottomless Waitress. Oh my god. The other cheek drops. And
The cheek drops.
the weird thing is, he didn't realize that he'd already done a theme to Bottomless Waitress. So this is the second theme to Bottomless Waitress.
Wow.
So
we do get extra.
Yeah.
We get a little extra, don't we?
we're totally extra.
How overstuffed
stand,
our egos
we all
right
stand
now.
a little bit more bottom in our life.
We've got all of the bottom, we're just butts now. So this theme, I would describe it, is Bottomless Waitress 2. It is part 2 of the BW canon, Revenge of the Banjo. We start off with a tractor roaring into life, and a banjo opening up to the sounds of rural Midwest America. Wide open cornfields, golden wheat, grain silos, quiet back roads, haystacks, big red barns, and a kinky little diner where the coffee is bottomless and so are the staff. Ava's Diner is a welcoming place for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Buttered buns, glazed donuts, and creamy desserts are a house specialty. So swing on by. No entry at the rear. We prefer you to come in by the front door. So, take it away, Gumwallace, with Bottomless Waitress.
My goodness.
And that was Gumwallace's theme for Bottomless Waitress, the second one. Written, of course, by Ozone Ocean and Baines. So
Hooray.
check it out, but beware of the safe for work nudity, I'd say, because it's like, there's no naughty bits, but be careful. All right.
Music safe for work.
Oh, the music is well and truly safe for work. It is. Okay. It's beautiful. Very American. Copeland would cream himself. So, genres in webcomics. We had a great little Patreon video where we discussed like comics and genres in general and all stuff about superheroes. But now we're gonna like try and reel it back into what genres we see in webcomics. Now, one of the things that was really big when I started in webcomics way back in the early 2000s was gamer stuff. Now, you couldn't like throw a rock without smashing into a bunch of greenhouses full of gamer comics. You know, this was the main theme. Everyone was doing like either specifically gamer stuff, like Black Mage or whatever that thing was called. I can't remember. 8-bit fantasy, or they were doing like a slice of life, two guys in a dorm room, discussing games. It was like gamer. So, you know, Control Alt Delete.
Yeah, I remember that.
The other ones, I can't remember. The one that Scott Kurtz did, I don't know. Everyone was doing them. What's the famous one? So famous that everybody else knows it. I can't bloody remember it.
You're thinking about the famous what was the game called? God, we're senile.
Yeah.
The one, God, with the orcs and stuff. Why can't I remember?
Oh, it's not that
Dungeons
one.
and Dragons?
Okay.
It's this other one by these two guys who started this convention that's really popular these days that I can't remember what it's called.
Can't remember everything. Or
Just
no, can't
embarrassing
remember
ourselves.
everything. Cast.
Hey,
Listen
yeah,
to Cast.
it's the senile cast. Anyway, games were the thing, and that was the main genre for webcomics. That's what when people talked about webcomics, they basically thought, oh, stuff about games, and that's just what they did. But these days, I think webcomics have opened up to be a lot more things. I mean, like certain genres have been defined by certain webcomic sites, like the rise of tapas and webtoons, and they have specific styles. You know, back in the day, there was the Comic Genesis and Smack Jeeves, you know, and they had specific styles that were popular on those sites. And yeah, with, you know, what Smack Jeeves was mainly like boy love manga kind of stuff, and that's its big thing. And there were certain sites that would do furries, you know, and that would be its big thing. But now I think the genres in webcomics have opened up a bit, don't you guys think?
Absolutely. I mean, if you just go on the Duck and search around, you'll find any matter of comics. I think a lot of ones that you can't even really kind of comfortably put in a box.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's absolutely just kind of the nature of platforms like ours now in webcomics, is because you have, you know, it's not like an industry that it's controlled by publishing houses that, you know, have to meet certain financial responsibilities and have to deal with marketing and stuff. A lot of people are just putting stuff out there because they like to make it. And I think that really results in an explosion of different genres and different ways you can play with genres. And, you know, you don't have to really fit into a box or even a marketable box anymore to make something and have it published and seen online. It might not always be the most successful thing, but I'm curious as to, for webcomics now, I'm curious how much marketing your comic as a certain genre has an impact on the kind of crowd that you attract.
Yeah, I would think that there has been an explosion in webcomics and vastness of themes, genres, formats. Again, I mean, there is just so much versatility out there nowadays, and I think that it is also becoming very much an industry, at least in certain aspects and in certain situations. If you take certain sites like tapas, like webtoons and stuff, they are extremely streamlined, and it feels very much like an industry where there is a specific style and a specific range of genre that is being, let's say, not allowed but promoted, because you have the capacity to upload anything you like if you meet certain specifications. But the general impression that you get as a consumer of webcomics when you go to those sites is that you will get very specific content, let's say. At least when it comes to style, approach, and to a point, thematology. Whereas around this industry revolves the indie, let's say, strata, where you get a lot more experimentation and a lot more diversity. And when I say diversity, I mean in the way that a genre is being explored, or in the art style, or in the combinations of different genres and the like. And that's less streamlined, less commercialized, I would say, unless you factor in Patreon, which is the way that a lot of webcomics monetize their content, at least to a point. So when you do see this industrialization happening, you do have a sector now. You don't just have a fringe situation anymore. And a sector has a very wide range in general.
Well, yeah. So Penny Arcade was the one I was trying to think of. Penny Arcade, that was the big one. One of the big things with the genres is, with the popularity of certain genres, was also that people saw people doing something, and when they wanted to jump on the bandwagon, it's monkey see, one monkey do, but also they saw this being popular, so they wanted to do what was popular as well. So it was Me Too stuff, and that still happens, I think, in a certain regard. With your webtoon stuff, as you're saying, they have like a house style that's quite slick, and it's not only the stuff that is the most popular there. So there's people who want to be popular and want to do something that's going to sell or whatever, and they're going to just jump on the bandwagon and do something in those same popular genres. So you're going to get a very sameness of style because of that, and it doesn't encourage diversity, like you were saying, unfortunately. Yeah, so those slick sites, exactly as you were saying, they encourage sameness of style,
which is something that has happened in art and keeps happening, not something new. Like when Tolkien became a hit, you got all sorts of fantasy works that were basically spin-offs on the framework that Tolkien installed, rather than a completely different kind of fantasy world building. And then you got Dungeons and Dragons, and then you have, it has become a genre in and of itself within fantasy to work within this framework.
Yeah.
So yeah, it happens. It happens all the time. It's not something to frown upon. It's just a thing that happens.
Yeah, you get derivative works of what's popular, and that's what happens. But yeah, so this is one stream of genre development. What are the popular genres these days in webcomics? I know it's like the gaming stuff is still there. That hasn't gone away. That is still a mainstay.
I would say romance is very popular, and LGTB. Sorry, I get the letters order wrong almost always. LG.
Me too.
As long as you have all the letters, it doesn't matter.
So I don't like the word queer because it started off as a slur. So that sort of thing is also becoming very popular. And adventure, I would say, and slice of life.
Oh, slice of life, yeah. And gaming were always like, they work together.
And fairy tales. Fairy tales as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hadn't known about that at all.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've heard about that as a genre of book that sells really well these days. I've heard about that.
Is that because of the Disney influence?
I wouldn't think so, to be honest. It doesn't feel Disney-esque.
I just mean not they're approaching it in a Disney way, but you know, Disney made a lot of money by reinventing by using the fairy tale because it was like a copyright free, so free IP, and so they popularized the idea of taking fairy tales and like using them. So that's what I mean by the Disney influence. That's an option open to us. Let's reinvent the fairy tale in our own style. Because that's what people usually do rather than actually telling fairy tales as they were, in the Grimm kind of fashion. Or the folk tale. People normally reinvent fairy tales. That's the fashionable thing to do.
Well, and the interesting thing about fairy tales, too, is that they're public domain. Unless you're being like, this is based off like the Disney Cinderella, then that's not. But whereas versus so when you work from a fairy tale, I think you can work from a story that people are already reasonably familiar with, or a template that people are reasonably familiar with, and you could take it and subvert it or do all sorts of things with it. Whereas you can't really do that so much for legal reasons with, with what we were talking about before, with a lot of like superhero titles and stuff like that. Now, of course, there's fan fiction, but if you're talking about something that you want to take and create and monetize and make your own thing, with fairy tales, I don't want to say much easier to do that. It's not, but you can do it better than you could with like a title that already exists, and then you can put your own interpretation onto it. So I think where a lot of people are drawn to fairy tales is using it as an interpretive tool that's more or less already understood. You know what I mean?
But also, like you're saying, like with fan art and stuff, you have a recognizable genre, but you have recognizable like stories and recognizable characters that you can use. So name recognition, which makes it easy to sell your stuff and easier for people to get into it because, we already know the character, we know the backstory or whatever. I want to see how this is being tackled. So
there's one comic. No, go on.
No, you go.
Never mind. Just go on. I can't remember what I was going to say. I've been rambling a bit, so I'd rather you go.
Okay. There's also the use of the general plot, let's say, of a fairy tale applied to a completely different premise, which has become very popular in Asia. I have seen it a lot, where you get like for example, you get the Snow White premise, pretty girl, evil stepmother, the huntsman, and the dwarves. And you assign these archetypical roles to a different cast, and you create a completely different story, but the interactions within these characters are the same. So if the audience pays attention, they can pick up that this is actually Snow White that they are watching, but they don't know, and you don't get to see it immediately, for example. And I have seen it lately. I have seen it spill over to more web comics as well. I'm going to reference one that is not on the duck, but I cannot think of something else right now, so excuse me. It's called Sheep's Clothing, and it's all about anthropomorphic animals, and you get this big bad wolf who lives in a castle, and a sheep wanders in as a dare, and of course gets captured, and now she has to find a way not to become food for the wolf. But they slowly start paying attention to each other as personalities. So that is a fairy tale plot.
Yeah,
that is pretty recognizable.
Beauty and the
in the way
Beast
that,
sort of thing.
yeah. So I don't really know how that is going to pan out because it's a wolf and a sheep, but the original premise though is that.
Well, that's not bad.
And it's pretty fun webcomic, which I'm totally going to try and lure over to the dad.
Oh, good on you. Modest Medusa stars a Medusa character who's like a little cutesy Medusa. Would you see that as fairy tale, maybe?
Yeah, I guess so. Remember this one very old webcomic that we had, which was something tower, and it was again anthropomorphic animals.
Purgatory Tower by Sarah Clegg.
Yes, thank you, Purgatory Tower, and that is definitely had the Dante vibes in it. So I don't know if that could qualify as a fairy tale, but it is the same logic and the same premise. It's just now becoming a lot more popular, and in in manga, I have seen it a lot, and in Asian webtoons, I have seen it a lot.
Okay.
And so that is one big popular thing that is happening.
Oh, that's interesting. I wish Sarah had finished Purgatory Tower. It was so good.
Yes.
Oh. So I love that comic. That was so cool. She was, yeah, pretty awesome. But she's not doing comics anymore, unfortunately. Damn it! All the good ones go. Well, Chubby the Vampire, of course, perennially popular on Drunkduck, is also made of characters from fairy tales and has a very dark gothic fairy tale style, which is interesting and fun. It's very Grimm's fairy tales in its style. So, oh my god, this is opening a whole new world to me. I never really thought fairy tales was a prime webcomic genre. This is amazing.
Fairy tales and myths and
I would for my comic Pinky TA, that style, I would say that fits into like what I would describe as heavy metal genre, like just that comic. And I think that say Putrid Meat would be that, or 2000 AD kind of genre, if those can be described as genres, that sort of gritty,
like a dystopian genre.
Yeah, that kind of thing. There's a very certain kind of taste to it. But yeah, I agree. I bet that there has to be a word for it. Maybe it is just like 2000 AD or heavy metal. I don't know.
That's how I would do it, because I mean, you could say dystopia and stuff like this, but
it's still kind of broad.
Yeah, it was like 2000 AD, like took together a whole bunch of different styles of things that fit within that comic, and that was incredibly influential. A lot of people read that and were influenced by it to create new amazing things, like the Warhammer world of gaming. Like Warhammer 40k was massively influenced by 2000 AD and the style they invented. And there's like many other things like have been art styles and stuff have been specifically inspired by that. And heavy metal's the same. That brought together a whole bunch of different European and South American and comic artists from all over the world. But because they all shared this transgressive kind of sexy style that really wasn't being promoted anywhere else, and that created a new genre just from that, because that's an anthology. Drunkduck anthology. That created a new genre just because of the kind of things they had introduced to there. And I think if I was to trace Pinky TA's style back, what really does it evoke? I would say that magazine and the kind of comics that came from there. So yeah,
science fiction as well and fantasy. Big categories.
A lot of dark fantasy. That's at least what I see a lot of it.
And lately, I have noticed, to my greatest pleasure, that historically inspired webcomics are springing up everywhere. Which like I remember when I first started Without Moonlight, I couldn't really find many historical webcomics on anything, and those that I could find were very, very specific, fairy tale-esque, in the sense that they were around the 1800s, about kings and queens in nondescript classical kingdoms and stuff like that. But now there is actual, legitimately historical stuff out there from all kinds of eras, and even when it's just a historical fantasy, and when I say historical fantasy, I mean veering away from history, like not actually following the history, but choosing a specific point and then deviating from it for the story. And there is also a lot of that, which is again very, very well done, and I'm so happy that I can enjoy some of those as well.
Yeah. Well, and it always feels good when you're able to think, my comic isn't alone, I fit in as part of something. So that's, and, like you say, when they're springing up and there's more of them around, it means there's more of an audience for it. Or if you want to sell your stuff to more people, you can piggyback off their audience and you can sell it to the people who are interested in that comic. So this means success. The more people who are interested in things that are like your work that are around, the more possibility that people will like your work.
Yeah, exactly. And also I think it is a very nice, like people are taking webcomics seriously nowadays. I think that's the biggest, not the big, but an important element in this explosion in versatility and pluralism that we see lately, because people do it with a view to create something that is a serious work of art. And when I say a serious work of art, means that something that they invest in and that they want to put out into the world as a brainchild, let's say, rather than, you know, do something like a doodle just to pass the time, and it's not anything
More of an opus
important.
magnum.
Yes,
Yes.
the magnum opus. Yeah, not shits and
Magnum,
giggles.
God damn it.
Yeah.
That's
You can go on mute for a little while.
No, don't. You are dropping bombs of fabulousness into the
Exactly.
Oh
cast.
God, thank you.
But yeah, it's as you say, you know, there people are creating good stuff, not just throwaway crap. And I mean, it's not people creating throwaway crap. It's that people often used to do things, you know, that were one-offs and small things and stuff they didn't really care that much about. And now people are genuinely putting heart and soul into a lot of their work, and they're creating something that is saleable and interesting and, you know, amazing. And this is why it's, you know, so much easier to do good features on Drunkduck, because there's so many great comics joining where people are putting so much effort into their work and they're proud of it.
Nice to see. I'd like to see people take webcomics as a more legitimate source of media and stuff like that, you know, and art. Because I think for a long time, I don't know, it has just kind of been, if anything, like the little brother to comic books, which, you know, it have not always been taken the most seriously either. And it's really too bad because they both have a great deal of potential. In webcomics, I think, especially, you know, if people, by using genre among other things as well as format and whatnot, webcomics could really become their own medium. It's just such a shame to see if it does go by the wayside. But I think if people really do keep on putting their heart and soul into, like, what is it that I want to make? What is it that I want? Not just to say, but how I want to express it, you know? How do I want to use genre, just to bring it back to this webcast? I really do think webcomics just have a great deal of potential. Maybe it's biased for us to say that because we are webcomicers, but there are reasons why we have chosen this medium. I mean, Tanya, you know, you've written novels before, but the stories that you're choosing to tell now are on a webcomic format. There has to be a reason for that, you know. And part of the reason why we do, you know, a webcomic format also, like, it can be a bit more self-contained if you do know how to do multiple things, like write and draw, and you don't necessarily have to know how to do it good to publish them online. But, like, I don't know, I'm coming off the topic again, so I'm going to stop myself from rolling on too much further with this. But I guess just part of that magic is to see the way people can treat genres. You know, some people put out stuff that's like straight up, like, you know, for instance, like, this is a yaoi comic, and when you read this comic, it's everything you're going to find in a yaoi comic to the T. Whereas there are some stories, maybe they have elements of that genre, but it's something else as well, you know, or like I said before, maybe some things aren't as easy to define, but it's just, I guess, just one of the strengths of this platform. So
yeah, and that is actually, I definitely think that webcomics, considering how the economy develops, and especially when it comes to the sequential arts, let's put it that way. I do think that webcomics are, you know, the small mammals next to the big dinosaurs that are about to evolve into something a lot more significant. But that's my prediction. And
that's interesting. Yeah, the print comics are the dinosaurs now.
The thing is, in creating in genres in general, webcomics has, as Deirdre said, as Speedface said, this amazing versatility where even new genres are created. Like I remember, when I started with that Moonlight, I tried to put a genre tag to it for obvious reasons to be found.
And you also have to do it when you start something on the duck. That's one of the things that you have to click, and it's very nerve-wracking, isn't it? You're just like,
yes,
yeah,
Yes.
it is.
Yeah,
I hate it.
Yeah, but I will click this. But if I do, people that want to read this won't go, and it's full of that as well. It's terrible. But anyway, I remember saying, okay, it is war, but is it really war? Because I don't really saw many battles or at all. But it is about war, and it is about war in the cities. Okay, so maybe I click war, but I couldn't click war because it's not exactly war in the cities, because everybody is brooding and waiting, and then there is this. It's like those cats that are one opposite of the other, and they are yowling but are doing nothing until there's this sudden that happens.
The Battle of Berlin. There aren't people like forces trampling through the city on tanks, but then at the same time, it is a city and it is a war, and they're dealing with those things. But it's like, it's like,
how do I categorize this thing? And then then it was there is a drama, so I put drama, and I think that there was no option for war originally or something like, I don't remember. But now there is this genre for war drama.
Oh, really?
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So it is drama during war, and that could mean anything. It doesn't have to be on the battlefield, but you also have war period, and you expect, the big speeches, and if we die today, today we dine in hell.
I expect at least one person to be bayoneted at some point.
Yes. But that's how new genres are created, or at least new categorizations are created, when your A plot and B plot and C plot are more or less of the same level of significance, and you are like this meme with the buttons and the guy that is sweating.
I love that one. It was always very clever.
Yeah, I like that one as well. So yeah, and that's when you get new niche categories. I can never pronounce that word. I have only seen it written.
Niche.
I think it's niche.
Yeah.
Niche. Okay, niche. So you create your own niche event.
All your pronunciations are correct, Hans. Don't worry.
Anyway, but and this is the amazing versatility for webcomics, because try pitching your print comic idea to a guy that wants to know very quickly which category it is, and do that in an elevator pitch. I dare you. For the genre. That's for the genre.
What a contrast. The creating inhabitants, there's not enough of it up now for anybody to really get a flavor for it yet. But I still don't even know what I would call it from what I have in my mind. I've come down to a little bit more, like there's a bit of horror in it, and then there's a bit of adventure, and then there's some fun stuff, but it's really a hodgepodge of things. It's almost like it's very sporadic, I think, in that different stories will have different tones. But I think when it comes to the theme is going to be mostly horror in a sense. But then there's a lot of adventure as well. And so, like, you know, you go from having, so it feels like you're on this big playground, right? It's like you're the only kid on this giant fun playground with all these genres you can use. But then it comes down to it and you have to just pick a couple. And it's just such a feeling of contrast, you know? Like I said, like it's almost scary in a sense until you remind yourself, like, this is just like a tag. And the way I describe the comic could kind of make up for that kind of shorthand. But I do wonder, I mean, do you think we could benefit more on the Duck from having people pick multiple genres for their comics? I mean, maybe that's something we could look into.
I would totally before.
The only problem we had with that, and we did sort of experiment with it, was the fact that a lot of people will just pick every genre.
But if you just have it like you can pick 2 or 3, like if it cuts you off at like 2 or 3 bullions, then.
Oh yeah, like 3 is a great
And
number.
also in a hierarchy, like what's your A genre, B genre, C genre, just to give an idea of where the focus and the weight of the story would be categorically, without limiting it too much.
Oh yeah, and anything that helps us categorize and sell a comic to readers is a fantastic idea, because that's what it's all about, you know. The site indexes your work in a way, and a way to get it to readers more easily is fantastic. So yeah, it would be good. Fantastic idea, you guys. Yeah. I like it. Yeah, where the weight of the genre lies. So it's more war drama rather than war drama. You know?
Yeah. Like it's not historical drama, it's war drama, or not a drama, it's not a war story, it's not necessarily a historical drama, although you could call it that. Like the war part and the intrigue part is important. So it is interesting to try to puzzle out what
a drama word just immediately makes me think of YouTube.
Yeah.
Drama.
Twitter war.
People flouncing around at each other. That's amazing.
Yeah, and going doing that slap fight.
Like a telenovela.
There is a thing of like not having to convince somebody to invest money or invest resources in what you want to make, or like businesses can be sometimes, like whether they mean it or not, like they have to acknowledge whatever's going on in the culture that given year or that given month or whatever, and that can make things difficult sometimes if it's like, oh, it's not quite right, it's too much this, it's not enough that, you know, that. And there's again the money thing obviously is huge. I don't know how the whole industry is going to change because of the pandemic and everything, but I've thought before now, I've thought that webcomics have a really good chance to really impact the culture.
Yeah.
Actually, now that you mention it, I remember when I wrote the screenplay for that movie, the historical movie that is currently in production hell because it's very expensive and, you know, pandemic and weirdos and, you know, a lot of stuff. Anyway, I remember specifically a couple of producers that I had to talk with wanted a full hot, steamy sex scene on the freaking top where everyone was getting carnage.
Uh-huh.
And I said, listen, there is a all right, there is one kiss, and that I had to completely build it up to make it feel natural, considering that there is a death stance everywhere around this fucking hill. Sorry for the French, because it is literally lined with dead bodies. So there is this one kiss. There is no way in hell that they would do it on the freaking table. So stop it. Yeah. But that was a big problem. It was a selling thing, a selling point. I'm pretty sure that if I had said yes to that, because I have the rights to the script for obvious reasons, if I had said yes, okay, we will have them bang like rabbits on that table, which wouldn't even be stable. I would probably have gotten like easy 300-400K.
Oh wow!
Man.
Yeah.
You should have done it.
No, I really shouldn't have. Believe me, guys, it would have been the most ridiculous thing ever, and the history doesn't deserve that. So no.
Sell yourself.
It just wouldn't make sense. It is what I'm saying. And
no, we get that. Yeah.
but it is a thing about the genre, because it is supposed to be historical war plus romance, but the romance is the C plot. It's not even the B plot. So because I had put in the genres in the debriefing file, because you create a portfolio where everything is completely described about the movie without actually anyone having to read the script. And he said, you have romance, we have to have hot sex.
So lame.
Yeah.
So what genre would that be? War sex or sex war?
Sex
The
war.
sexy war.
Sex war sounds like a song for what was his name? The guy with the sex bomb.
It sounds like something out of Pinky TA, to be honest.
Yes.
Sex.
That's the one.
Sounds like a Spinal Tap. Sex
Yeah.
war. Sex war.
Sex war. Walking on a black wall.
Sex war. But yeah, genre tags sometimes can work against you.
They can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I think we better wrap up there. This has been webcomic genre cast. Very interesting, guys. I like that little chat. And this is the first. What, go on, bud?
Neat, I say.
Neat.
That was great.
Yeah, this is the first QUACKCAST we've done in ages. This has been mainly about webcomics.
Why? The anthology is about what comics are.
It is, but mainly just Drunkduck ones, whereas this is general webcomics. So, thank you guys for being on the Sex Warcast. It's been very good. Alright, chat to you next week, everyone. And yeah,
Next week.
bye.
Bye.